Thank you very much, Anne. So that wraps up the first part of the press conference. We will now move straight on to media Q&A. And as requested, please state your name. No, well, we have your names and outlets. So we'll start with the first question, which comes from Aniket Narawad from the Financial Times, who says the report notes that investment signals in new nationally determined contributions remain limited based on analysis up to May 2025. Since then, several additional NDCs have been submitted. Have you observed any improvement or stronger investment signals in those more recent submissions? And more broadly, do you see greater clarity emerging around the overall investability of NDCs in terms of how well they guide private capital and financing? Perhaps we'll start with you, Ms. Andersen.
Yeah, and I'll be very brief because I think my colleague Anne Olhoff will give a more comprehensive response. But I'll just say that this is why we have to focus on finance. We have a considerable amount of conditional NDCs, conditional in large part because it's not sure that the financing is available. But we need to ensure that that financing that we promised each other over the years, and latest the 1.3 trillion, that we will work towards that target. And so getting investables, the programs and the projects and the conditional that are listed in the conditional NDCs, getting that actually moving becomes critical. But Anne, can I ask you to go into the details, please?
Yes, I'm afraid I don't have a lot of additional details. This is something we looked into in more detail in last year's report, where we actually made the point that conditional NDCs were an opportunities for countries to outline more clear investment plans for their implementation, especially of the conditional elements. Unfortunately, we were not able to update the analysis beyond the 18 NDCs included in that specific piece. But overall, we do not see major changes compared with this initial assessment. So there's still ample opportunity to explore this more as a potential way forward for countries to raise more investments and finance for the implementation of their NDCs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We shall move on to our next question, which comes from Ferdinand Vlogel, reporter at the Dutch press agency ANP. I have a question for Director Andersen. Sources have told us that the State Department of the United States has requested that their data be withdrawn from the report. Can you confirm that such requests have been made, and can you comment on it? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. We send the report to all countries whose names are mentioned. We did not receive comments from the US in time of the deadline. Thereafter, we did receive a request for the footnote, which we then added. And that's a footnote that you will have read. It speaks to that the US does not support the emissions gap report, et cetera, et cetera. All reports of UNEP are based on science, and they are independently produced with very serious peer review. And it is produced in a consultation with large groups of stakeholders, the lead authors, of course, expert reviewers, the editors, and the countries concerned. And as I mentioned, we always offer countries that are directly referenced a chance to comment on the preliminary findings in the draft report. That's part of what we do. But the final EGR has absolutely not changed or not been updated based on any country engagement. We accommodated the footnote for the singular reason that the US has announced that they are leaving the Paris Accord. But the scientific evidence and the contents of the emissions gap report remains completely unchanged. And after the deadline, as I mentioned, the US asked to be removed. That was too late, obviously, and so we simply added the deadline. Thank you.
Thank you very much for clarifying. We have something here from Bianca Rothier, correspondent from Global TV in Brazil, who says, with COP30 set to take place in Belém, what are the UN's expectations for that conference? And to what extent could COP30 help set a new direction for global climate action?
Well, maybe I'll start out here, but of course, I mean, it's very significant, by the way, that we are meeting in Belém, and we are very, very happy about that. Look, UNEP, we are based in Nairobi. We understand climate change up close and personal, not that others do not, but we live it. We were in a 4-year drought. We saw what it can do to people, to agriculture, and to nature, and therefore that sustains the people, etc. And we saw how it hits the budget. So having, first of all, I would say that it is unique. Yes, we have been in Lima. Yes, we have been in various other cities, but here we are right smack in the middle of the Amazon and the rainforest. And this is a very, very important element that will help negotiators, I hope, bring the reality of poverty, the pressures on forest, etc., to the fore. So what are we looking for? Of course, working towards the absolutely clear ambition and further stretches, encouraging everyone who is able to stretch beyond, get the remaining NDCs submitted, of course, and then look at the finance side, as I referenced before. It's time to get that engine rolling. We are particularly delighted to see our Brazilian friends launch the Tropical Forest Facility, Tropical Forest Forever facility, which we think brings a real new way of thinking about mobilizing finance and has the potential really to invest in these forests for their long-term sustainability. That is absolutely critical. And so we're very, very pleased that that the COP is happening in Brazil, but also that they have placed it in Belém. Will it be complex? Yes, but that's like meetings in Nairobi. We have to understand that living in this big world, not everybody has the fancy infrastructure, and sometimes there's some complexity. That's what those people in those cities journey every day. We surely be able to journey it for a couple of weeks for the conference. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Andersen. We have a question from Bob Bowen at Inside Climate News. I think this is one for you, Anne. Could you please give us a basic explanation of how you calculated the US 0.1 degree figure?
Yes. So basically what we did is we took the emissions projections, the with and without the US, and ran them through the climate temperature model that the team is using. And that basically gave a 0.1 degree Celsius difference. I don't know if that's enough, but that is basically what we did.
I think that's clear. Thank you so much. We have somebody, Sverker Lennas, from the newspaper Dagens Nyheter in Sweden, who says, the production gap report for 2025 shows governments planning for double the fossil fuel production compatible with 1.5 degrees. How do you reconcile this development with the urgent need for rapid mitigation action from 2025 as called for by the EGR?
That's a very fact here. I mean, we are not responsible for the production gap report, but these are numbers that have been published. We have to take them on face value. And the reality is, therefore, as our report also points out, that we are not seeing anyone reducing their oil production. To the contrary, that's not what we are seeing in any of the NDCs. We are seeing step up on renewables, step on various other things. We're seeing energy efficiency and carbon capture and forestry, etc. But the actual looking at the production is not there, which is why we have to really put forward that we accelerate the investments in the energy sector into renewable, because we know that it is actually cheaper in most markets. And so we are seeing that states like Texas has invested massively in renewable because it makes economic sense to the consumer. We are seeing this happening across the world. Kenya, just a country that I mentioned before, 92% renewable, still not all connected, but 92% renewable. They happen to sit on the rift and therefore have amazing geothermal as well as solar and wind potential. But the point is that this makes them then energy independent. It makes them obviously offsets potential otherwise costs to the budget. So everybody needs to lean in. To make that happen, we have to have the financing lined up. But yes, production is not part of the NDCs, which of course we mention in the report.
Thank you very much. We have one here from Daniela Chiaretti, who is with Valor Econômico in Brazil, and says, sorry if this is a very basic question. How can we explain what overshoot means in simple terms? Some people think that once we exceed 1.5, there is nothing else to do and they give up. Thank you.
Is that for me, Keisha?
Go for it, Anne.
Okay, so basically, overshoot refers to a temporary exceedance of a given temperature target. and the subsequent return to or below that target, according to the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. So the key here is that it's temporary, that there is sort of a pathway that brings us back to where we started from or below. So that's what overshoot implies. If we don't return, it's basically exceedance or permanently breaching a given temperature target.
Thanks very much.
Maybe I'll try to make it even more simple.